attention on us all throughout our society from every level, from lost jobs, lost housing, lost childcare. COVID is with us. We're staring down an even more virulent strain right now that is affecting more and more people. We need this money to deal with the human toll of COVID. We don't need to use this money to fund a capital expense, which is what this is. I just don't feel like we can justify this, and I think I agree with my colleague, Councilmember Sepulveda, that this is short-sighted and just shows that as a body, we are not truly paying attention to the needs of the citizens here as they live and breathe, and I think we need to change our focus. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Welsh. We're having a few problems with our technical stuff. Councilmember Young, you're next.
Previous question.
Councilmember Young has called the previous question. Councilmember Stiles, you're having trouble with your button? It is not. Okay, so he's checking it right now. But we're on the previous question. Let's see where we go with that. Councilmember Young has called the previous question. All those in favor of the previous question say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. So it's we have to, what, 2/3? You can check. It just didn't list up there. How many? All right, so it's a 2/3 vote on a previous question. So just to be on the safe side, we're going on the board. Madam Clerk, if you would. We're not voting on the resolution. That's right. Okay, so it's 2/3 of those who are present and voting. So we're gonna have to get on the board just to make sure we've got this right. Okay, so Madam Clerk, it's a previous question. Again, not on the resolution, just on the previous question. If you're for going ahead and voting, you would vote yes. If you're not, if you want more discussion, you would vote no. Okay. Madam Clerk is ready. Open up the machines. Again, just on the previous question. We'll have to see how many people. Okay.
Voted, so it'll be.
Okay, some people have not voted, which is okay. I'll give you just another minute. Again, it's 2/3 of those present and voting. Total votes cast. Yeah. All right, Madam Clerk, close machines, take the vote. Okay, so the previous question fails. Previous question fails. All right. All right. Double checking. I can just tell that it fails. Yeah. All right, so we're back on. Oh, let me go back. Okay, Councilmember Johnston, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So I'm in support of this resolution. I'm a sponsor of it. I don't think anybody disagrees with the need for these vehicles for these three departments. I think there's a question of number one, priority, number two, source of funds. These vehicles are light fleet that cannot go into a capital spending plan. Only heavy fleet can. So that leaves operating funds, 4% funds, or this, really. We don't vote on another operating budget for another 6 months. and the need is real. We have response times that are unsatisfactory for our constituents and for the police department. Again, the need is there. I don't think anyone disagrees with that. So as far as priority, I think we all agree that we want to get these dollars into the hands of Nashvillians and small businesses and support that. We had a delay with our economic development allocation because of some personal tragedy. And so that doesn't mean that that's not a priority, and that is coming soon. They are coming to make that ask at our next meeting on the 13th. So you'll be seeing that. We just made a very significant allocation to affordable housing. We've made some allocations to KC homes and the like. So we are moving forward. We've only allocated, if all of this is allocated, around 95 million out of the 260. So we have plenty to go. Again, this is a significant need. And so I hope that everyone will support this allocation. And it is a one-time expenditure. I think we do need to get to the point where somewhere in our operating budget, we are every year allocating towards our fleet. We have gotten ourselves into a massive hole. We started off 2 years ago with $120 million of a hole. And so I ordinarily would not support this, but we've got to somehow get out of the hole. Thankfully, President Biden did expand the use of these funds to include public safety because of the call from municipalities as it relates to increasing crime rates due to COVID. It is appropriate, and I hope that you will all support this. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Suara, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I wanted to make some observation that we do realize that there was a problem with the fleet. We are in the hole, and we've been making stride towards that. In FY20, we approved 55 police vehicles, which is 41 SUV and 14 mid-size sedan. In FY21, we actually approved 89 SUVs and 26 mid-size sedan, which is about 115 cars. And then at this meeting, the last one and this one, today, with Resolution 1278 and 1279, we will also be approving about 77 vehicles. Now, I understand their replacement, but I think I just want to point out that it's not like we're not making stride, or we're not listening, or we're not doing anything for the police department. The conversation is just about this $9 million, is this the time to use it for cars? Or since we're replacing all these fleets, can we use that to deal with issues that are more urgent, that goes directly to the citizens, and then come back to this? But I wanted to point out that today, we have approved 77 police cars, and we did approve 115 for last fiscal year. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Stiles, do you have a point of order? Or are you trying to get somebody's attention? Wait a minute, here, let me recognize you because I can't hear you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I still can't use my button, even though it had been pushed,
Okay,
so my hand was up.
We've got you on here.
Oh, you did? Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
we've got you. Okay. Councilmember Pulley, you're recognized. There you go. There, you're on.
Previous question.
All right. Councilmember Pulley has called the previous question. We're voting on the previous question. Again, remember, if you want to go ahead and vote on this resolution, you'd vote aye. If you want to continue discussion, you'd vote no. Okay? We're back on the machines. Madam Clerk? Councilmember Stiles, is your machine working? Can you vote? You can't vote either? Okay, you can vote. Okay. All right. Madam Clerk, you ready? Open up the machines. Again, this is a vote on the previous question. Requires a 2/3 of those present and voting. Madam Clerk, close the machines, take the vote. All right, the vote is 24 to 10. The previous question prevails this time. Okay, so we are on the resolution. It is RS 2021-1263. We are voting on that matter. Just because I know there's going to be negative votes, Madam Clerk, can you get the machine ready? Okay. Madam Clerk, open up the machines. We're voting on RS 2021-1263.
All votes are in.
All votes are in. Madam Clerk, close the machines. Take the vote. Vote is ayes 25, noes 8, 3 abstentions. The bill resolution passes. We are now on item 25. This is RS 2021-1296 by Council Members Allen, Evans, and Stiles. This is a resolution accepting the Edwin Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant from the United States Department of Justice to the Metropolitan Government through the Police Department to support a broad range of activities to prevent and control crime, including technology, upgrade supplies for direct support, in-service and specialized training. Councilmember Allen, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Committee reports.
I've got one from Budget and Finance and one from Public Health and Safety. I'll go to Councilmember Evans first.
We voted to approve, 9 in favor, 0 against.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Allen, Budget and Finance.
Thank you. Budget and Finance recommended approval, 12 in favor, 0 against, and I move for approval.
Okay, so Councilmember Allen has moved for approval of RS 2021-1296. Councilmember O'Connell, you're recognized. Oh, I'm sorry. She's got the motion properly seconded. Now you're recognized.
Oh, good. Thank you, Mr. President. So on this one, I'm going to encourage colleagues to support it. I'm going to support it. You'll remember, I hope, in September, we approved the application for this process. And I think as we are now accepting the successful JAG award, I do want to ask the administration if they would be willing to commit. As we were working on the application in September, they sent out a helpful history, which indicated the past multi-departmental approach here, and I'd love for the administration to comment on and ideally commit to restoring a collaborative application process for this. I know that multiple departments can make use of these funds. I'm certainly supportive of the law enforcement needs we have, but I know that we've in the past also funded things like the juvenile court team and multiple other departments, and I'd love to get the administration to commit to restoring that process that allows multiple departments to submit for this. And I'll wait for their response. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right. Mr. Jameson from the administration.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Thank you, Councilman O'Connell. I know my place on the letterhead in the office, so I don't know that I have the authority to commit to anything, but I will certainly broach this topic with the mayor in the morning just for a brief review of the discussion in September. So the Byrne grant used to be called the Local Law Enforcement Block Grant. It was a much larger federal program, and it was administered in two parts, one through the state and one locally, but the federal administrators required that it be dispersed across all entities that had any sort of law enforcement capacity. So that included not just the Metro Police, but the Parks Police, the Juvenile Court, the JIS system, any agency that had engagement. Sometime around 2004, 2005, it got changed to the Edward Byrne Memorial Grant, and the amount of federal funding total started shrinking pretty dramatically, and the eligible programs that were available to the various departments essentially made it no longer worth their while. It ranged up in the millions previously, but now the individual grants were below $300,000. It also became somewhat tedious in terms of submitting the necessary documentation. The police developed some expertise in maintaining their eligibility, and other departments, a combination of ineligibility and a loss of interest. Even though the federal administrators dropped the requirement that it be shared, that the police department continued to do so here in Metro for 5 years. But then there appeared to be some lack of interest at the local level. I should underscore that the state level of the JAG grant remains open to any and all comers. The library has obtained a state-level JAG grant, and we would certainly encourage that. But I will appreciate Councilman O'Connell's request. We'll take it up with the mayor in the morning and report back to the council.
Councilmember O'Connell?
Thank you, Mr. President. I think that's appropriate, Mr. Jameson. I guess my other request would be maybe we could get some affirmation of that lack of interest, because I've heard that there is ongoing interest in this, which is the only reason I bring it up, is that it is, there is still some interest at the local level, and maybe we could get a report on the eligibility. And maybe that's the way to go, is prior to the next application cycle, if we could get a report on eligibility and so maybe there's an approach to reducing that tedium. So appreciate that, and I'll look forward to working with the administration further on this. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Pulley, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Appreciate the conversation, and certainly want this to be open to whoever's eligible to apply for it. I just want to clarify something that I think I heard from Mr. Jameson regarding the eligibility is this, I understand, shrunk basically the eligibility portion of it to where it's very specific in nature. So is that what I heard you say, Mr. Jameson?
Mr. Jameson?
That is correct. The original grants were in the $1 million range, and then it became about $300,000. And so if you divided that up among the 10 or so agencies that previously came under any sort of criminal law enforcement, it was not a lot of money for any group of departments that might apply.
And so we'll look forward to a report from the mayor's office, I assume, and consistent with Councilman O'Connell's request on,
Yes, sir.
Which will include that eligibility. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you, Councilmember Pulley. Anybody else in the queue? Seeing none, I have a motion from Councilmember Allen, and it's been properly seconded on item 25. It's RS 2021-1296. Ready to vote. All those in favor of RS 2021-1296, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Resolution passes. Last item on the resolution section is item number 32. It's RS 2021-1303. It's by Councilmember Toombs, Hurt, and Taylor. It's a resolution requesting the COVID-19 Financial Oversight Committee to recommend to the Metropolitan Council the appropriation of not less than $70 million in American Rescue Plan Act funds to be appropriated to the Mayor's Office of Economic Community Development for economic development in disadvantaged communities, with particular emphasis on Bordeaux and North Nashville, and for funding of the Nashville Small Business Recovery Fund. Councilmember Toombs, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Committee report.
Budget and Finance, Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance recommended a deferral to February 1, 12 in favor, 0 against.
First meeting in February?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Councilmember Toombs, you're recognized.
Move to defer to the first meeting in February.
All right. Councilmember Toombs has moved to defer to the first meeting in February, properly seconded. Any discussion on the deferral motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the deferral motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Deferral motion is adopted. All right. We're now on bills on introduction and first reading. Any bills that need to be considered separately? Otherwise, we'll take them all at the same time. Seeing none, need a motion to approve all bills on introduction, first reading. Got a motion properly seconded. All those in favor of bills on introduction, first reading say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Bills are adopted on introduction and first reading. We do have a late filed bill. It is by Councilmember Parker. It is an ordinance to amend Title 17 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws by changing from RM20A NS to RM20A, zoning for property located at 123 Elmhurst Avenue, northwest corner of Lucille Street and Elmhurst Avenue is 0.13 acres. Councilmember Parker, you're recognized on your late filed bill.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Do I need to call for a suspension of the rules in order to have this heard?
Yes.
All right, I would call for a suspension of the rules to have
All
this
right,
heard.
let me go to Rules Committee. Councilmember Vercher, did Councilmember Parker show up at Rules today?
He did, Vice Mayor.
Okay, and what did you all decide?
There was no objections.
All right, thank you. So Councilmember Parker, you want to move to suspend the rules? All right, so is there objection to suspension of rules to get this matter considered tonight on first reading? Any objections? Seeing none, rules are suspended. Councilmember Parker, you're on your bill.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I've just moved for approval today, and we'll have a public hearing as usual. With this one, it'll be renoticed, and we will have discussion in committee.
All right, so you simply want to go ahead and move it on first reading.
That's correct. Move on first reading.
All right, so the motion is to approve this bill on first reading properly. Seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Councilmember O'Connell?
Thank you, Mr. President. It's mostly a point of order. I am listed on the caption here, and it is not my bill, and I don't know if that's just something clerical we need to address. On the screen. I don't know if it's on the...
Oh. No, we just like to put your names on all kinds of legislation.
And you can put, I'm going to vote against it if my name's on it, but
It's Elmhurst. Okay, so we think it's just a mistake, but
I just wanted to make sure as we bring it back that we have that corrected for when it hits the floor.
all right, we will take care of it. Again, the motion is to approve on first reading, properly seconded. Any other discussion? Any other names up on the bill? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Bill is adopted on first reading. Thank you, Councilmember Parker. We are now on bills on second reading. There is a second reading consent calendar. Stay with me. Item number 45 is the first one. It's Bill 2021-1021 is on consent. 1024 is on consent. 1026 is on consent. 1027 on consent. 1028 on consent. And 1029 on consent. Anything needs to be bumped off the consent calendar? All right, seeing none. These are the items on the consent calendar tonight. It's BL 2021-1021 by Councilmember Hall. It's an ordinance to amend ordinance number BL 2021-693. Previously established the Special Solid Waste and Recycling Commission to revise the participation role of staff from the Solid Waste Division of the Metro Public Works Department to Metro Water Services. BL 2021-1024 by Councilmember Stiles, Allen, Withers, Bradford, and Young. Ordinance declaring a certain plan road on the Orchard Bend Park property to be a public right-of-way and granting a temporary access easement. BL 2021-1026 by Sledge, Withers, and Young. Ordinance authorizing PDP Acquisitions, LLC to install, construct, and maintain underground encroachments in the right-of-way located at alley number 806, the intersection of Hagan Street. BL 2021-1027 by O'Connell, Withers, and Young. Ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government to abandon existing water, sanitary sewer, and storm sewer mains, sanitary sewer manhole, catch basins, easements to relocate a fire hydrant assembly, and to accept new water and storm sewer mains, storm catch basins, water quality units, and easements for 5 properties located on 7th Avenue South, 8th Avenue South, and Fogg Street, also known as Paseo South Gulch. O'Connell, Withers, and Young are the sponsors. BL 2021-1028, it's item number 50. Councilmembers Nash, Withers, and Young. Ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government to relocate a water pressure reducing valve, construct public water mains, and to require temporary and permanent easements through negotiation, condemnation, and acceptance for property located at 5646 Amelie Drive. And the last item on the consent agenda for second reading is Bill 2021-1029 by Benedict, Withers, and Young. Ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government to replace the sanitary sewer force main, construct a new sanitary sewer force main, acquire temporary easements through negotiation, condemnation, and acceptance for the Clean Water Nashville OAP House Avenue force main replacement project. Properties located along House Avenue, Rothwood Avenue, Geeson Drive, Idlewild Court, and Idlewild Place. Benedict, Withers, and Young, again, are the sponsors. Those are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are the 6 bills on consent for second reading. Anything that needs to be bumped off that I read? Seeing none, I need some committee reports. Budget and Finance, Councilmember Allen, you've got one.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance recommended approval for BL 2021-1024, 12 in favor, 0 against.
All right, thank you. Planning and Zoning, Councilmember Rutherford.
Thank you, Mr. President. Planning and Zoning considered 1024, 1026, 1027, 1028, and 1029, voting 9 in favor, 0 against on all.
All right, Public Facilities, Councilmember Van Rees.
Thank you. Yes, we heard 1024 and voted in favor of a roundabout, which is something that's dear to me. 6 in favor, 0 against.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Van Rees. Councilmember Young, Transportation.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. And I assured you in that committee meeting we did not speak in circles. Transportation Committee heard bills 1021, 1024, 1026, 1027, 1028, and 1029. And we recommended approval, 9 in favor, 0 against.
All right, can you give me a motion to approve?
I so move.
All right, so Councilmember Young has moved to approve those bills on the second reading consent agenda, properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The bills on second reading on the consent agenda are adopted. All right, so we go back to the first bill up on second reading. It's BL 2021-961. Councilmembers Johnston, Pulley, Nash, and others. An ordinance amending Section 13.08.080 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws to pertaining to the use of license plate scanner technology in the public rights-of-way. Councilmember Johnston, you are recognized.
Committee reports, please.
All right, Transportation Infrastructure, Councilmember Young.
We voted 10 in favor, 0 against for a deferral to the second meeting of January.
Okay, and Public Health and Safety, Councilmember Evans.
We also voted 10 in favor, 0 against to defer. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Johnston, you're recognized.
I'd like to defer to the second meeting in January, please.
Okay, I got a deferral to the second meeting in January, properly seconded. Any discussion on the deferral? Seeing none, we're voting on a motion to defer to the second meeting in January. All those in favor of the deferral motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Deferred to the second meeting in January. BL 2021-1010 by Councilmember Glover, an ordinance to amend Chapter 6.77, the Metropolitan Code of Laws relative to operation of entertainment transportation vehicles. Councilmember Glover, you are recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Transportation Infrastructure, Councilmember Young.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. We voted 10 in favor, 0 against for a one-meeting deferral.
Okay, Councilmember Glover.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I move to defer one meeting with a brief explanation.
All right, got a deferral motion for one meeting, properly seconded. Back to you.
So I think we're deferring to make that we have language clarification, and I think we're going to find out it was because basically, in talking with the attorney, the same folks worked on it. So I think everything will be cleared up. But the key thing I do want to point out in this, even though we're deferring it, the one key issue in this is staying 600 feet away from the schools and throughout Metro. I think that's going to be important no matter what part of the town that these party vehicles are in, 600 feet away. So I'm hoping we get all clarification. Everything realized is that it's not in conflict and we go forward, but we get it moved on the next one. So with that, I renew the motion to defer one meeting.
All right, so the motion is to defer one meeting. Again, it was properly seconded. Councilmember McConnell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. We've got a, this is a place where we're threading a needle, where we are asking our peers in the General Assembly to work with us on some regulatory clarity on this front. Just want to make sure we don't create any additional hurdles in that regard, and appreciate Councilmember Glover's willingness to collaborate on this. I think we can get to a good outcome here.
All right. Any other discussion? Again, we're on a deferral motion of one meeting. All those in favor of the deferral motion say aye. Opposed, no. The bill is deferred one meeting. We're on item number 43. This is BL 2021-1013 by Councilmember Van Rees, Allen, and others. Ordinance approving a lease agreement by and between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, acting by and through the Metropolitan Board of Education and Liberty Collegiate Academy. Councilmember Van Rees, you're recognized.
Committee reports, please.
Budget and Finance, Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance recommended a one-meeting deferral, 12 in favor, 0 against.
Okay.
Actually, that's, go ahead.
Okay, somebody's got who's got education? Councilmember Sepulveda?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Education voted 6 in favor, 0 against for a one meeting deferral for 1013.
Okay, Planning and Zoning, Councilmember Rutherford?
Planning and Zoning voted 9 in favor and 0 against on the substitute, and 9 in favor and 0 against on the bill as substituted.
So you approved the bill as substituted?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, Councilmember Van Rees, back to you.
Yes, I understand my colleagues' desire to hear directly from Metro Schools in regard to how these items have come to us. And although it was approved at the Planning Commission, I support the deferrals of the other committees and ask for that from the whole body at this time.
All right, so Councilmember Van Rees, the motion is to defer one meeting?
Correct.
Okay. That's the motion, properly seconded. Any discussion on the deferral motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the deferral motion for one meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion passes. Bill is deferred one meeting. We've got a similar bill, BL 2021-1015, Allen, Withers, Robertson, Lee. Councilmember Allen, ordinance approving a lease agreement by and between the Metropolitan Government acting through the Metropolitan Board of Education and Nashville Prep. Councilmember Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Okay, Education, Councilmember Sepulveda.
Thank you. Education voted to defer one meeting, 7 in favor, 0 against.
Councilmember Rutherford, Planning and Zoning.
Planning and Zoning voted 9 in favor and 0 against to defer to the first meeting in January.
Okay, and Councilmember Allen, you've got Budget and Finance.
Yes, Mr. Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance recommended a one-meeting deferral, 12 in favor, 0 against, and I move to defer one meeting.
All right, Councilmember Allen has moved to defer one meeting. That is the first meeting in January. Properly seconded. Any discussion on the deferral motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the deferral motion say aye. I heard 2 ayes. All those in favor of the deferral motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. That's better. The motion passes. This one is deferred one meeting. We're on BL 2021-1025. That's item number 47. This is by Councilmember Van Rees, Withers, Young, and others. Ordinance to amend the GIS system street and alley centerline layout for the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County by renaming Woodrow Street between Gallatin Pike and the Peggy Street and Linda Lane intersection to David McMurray Way. Councilmember Van Rees, you're recognized.
Yes, I'd like to move a deferral to the first meeting in February with a brief exclamation.
All right, let me get a couple committee reports just to bring them in. Planning and Zoning, Councilmember Rutherford.
Planning and Zoning voted 9 in favor and 0 against to defer to the first meeting in February.
All right, Transportation, Councilmember Young.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. We voted 10 in favor, 0 against to defer until February 1.
All right. All right, Councilmember Van Rees, you're recognized.
Thank you very much. This is an automatic deferral, actually, because the Historical Commission staff did not meet in December and has to meet in January, and so it is being deferred because of that. But I'm welcoming it because that gives us the month of January to work with the David McMurray Memorial Committee and those in the area, including constituents both in District 8 and District 9. To make sure that we do this the right way. So I ask for that deferral, and we'll get it right. Thank you so much.
All right, so what's your motion? Is your motion to the first meeting in
Defer
February?
to the first meeting in February.
Okay, that's the motion, properly seconded. Any discussion on the motion to defer to first meeting in February? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion is adopted, deferred to the first meeting in February. Okay, and I believe those are all the bills on second reading. All right. So hold on to your hats. There's a bunch of them on third reading on the consent calendar. We'll go through them. The first bill on the consent calendar for third reading is 787. That's item number 53. The second one is item number 55. That's 887 is on consent. The next one on consent is 929, and here we go. 930 is on consent, 946 on consent, 974 on consent, 975 on consent, 983 on consent, 984 on consent, 985 on consent, 986 on consent, 987 on consent, 988 on consent, 989 on consent, 990 on consent, 991 on consent, 992 on consent, 994 on consent, 996 on consent, 997 on consent, 998 on consent. Item 77-103, item 77 BL 2021-103 is on consent. I'm sorry, 1003 is on consent. 1004 is on consent. 1005 on consent. 1006 on consent. 1008 on consent. 1009 on consent. BL 2021-1012 is on consent. 1012 is on consent. 1016 is on consent. 1017 is on consent. 1017 is on consent. 1018 is on consent. 1019 is on consent. And 1020 is on consent. Councilmember Johnston. You're not Councilmember Johnston, but I'll recognize you. Councilmember Benedict at Councilmember Johnston's desk.
I'll get it.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Could I have a point of personal privilege, please?
Sure.
Thank you. So I'm back here because it seems to me that we have a Georgia fan in the back row who also enjoys stealing things like the beautiful Michigan sweatshirt that I had on just a little bit ago. So I just want to make sure that for the rest of the meeting, while I wear my almost national championship Michigan Wolverines shirt casually for the rest of this meeting, I want to make sure that this body is aware that somebody back here in the very back row enjoys taking things from our desks. So please just beware, and let's just make sure those dogs go down. Thank you
All right.
for the privilege, Vice
Thank
Mayor.
you, and I don't know who you're talking about, but I assume it's Councilmember Rosenberg. All right. Councilmember Pulley, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I couldn't let that go by without responding. I would like to point out to Councilmember Benedict just how incredibly dominant the Southeastern Conference has been over the mid-major conference that Michigan resides in, called the Micro 10. Also, my colleagues would just dread hearing the long list of accomplishments the SEC has had over the Big Ten and over the entire country over the past 20 or 30 years. So I will refrain from doing that, but anybody can see me after the meeting, and I'll spend about 2 hours explaining that to you. Thank you.
There's a point of order from Councilmember Hancock. Councilmember Hancock.
Thank you. I just didn't want to disrespect any of our fantastic folks here in Nashville that made the wisest decision that you can make when you're selecting someone to play in the Music City Bowl, as they chose the Tennessee Volunteers. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Van Rees, you're recognized.
Yeah, sooner or later, we will be talking about women's basketball before I leave office. I would like to make sure that item number 85 is removed from the consent agenda so we can speak on it. Thank you.
Okay, let's see.
That's
Item
1016.
Item 85. Item 85 is Bill 2021-1016. It's taken off of consent. Anything else needs to come off of consent? You all could have had that entire discussion while I was reading the captions, which is going to take about 20 minutes.
But that would be rude to discuss that while you're...
It would be rude? No, it would be very much welcome. Okay, here goes. BL 2021-787, item number 53 by Councilmember Parker. Ordinance to amend Title 17 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws by change from CS and CL to SP zoning for properties located 1505, 1509, 1511, 1513, 1601, and 1603 Dickerson Pike, 1600, 1608, 1612, and 1616 Luton Street and Dickerson Pike unnumbered. Permit a mixed-use development. That's Councilmember Parker, 787. The next item is BL 2021-887 by Councilmember Parker. Ordinance to authorize building material restrictions requirements for BL 2021-787. Proposed specific plan zoning district located 1505, 1509, 1511, 1513, 1601, 1603 Dickerson Pike, 1600, 1608, 1612, 1616 Luton Street, and Dickerson Pike. Proposed ordinance requires certain materials to be restricted in the construction of buildings. Next item on consent is item 57, BL 2021-929 by Councilmember Toombs. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by change from RA to SP zoning for properties located at 334 and 336 Ewing Drive, approximately 560 feet west of Richmond Hills Drive at 11.81 acres. Permit 100 multifamily residential units. BL 2021-930 by Councilmember Toombs. Ordinance to authorize building material restrictions requirements for BL 2021-929. Proposed specific plan zoning district located at 334, 336 Ewing Drive, 560 feet west of Richmond Hills Drive. Proposed ordinance requires certain materials to be restricted in the construction of buildings. Item number 59, BL 2021-946 by Councilmember Taylor. Ordinance to amend Title 17. A request to rezone from R6 and CS to SP zoning for properties located at 1919, 1924, 1928 9th Avenue North, southeast and southwest corners of Clay Street, 9th Avenue North, 1.12 acres. Permit a mixed-use development. BL 2021-974, Allen, Stiles, and Roberts. Ordinance amending Title 17 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws regarding the design and operation of outdoor electrical lighting. Clarify application of the dark sky regulations by public utilities on public property. BL 2021-975 by Sepulveda and Suara. Ordinance amending Section 17.40.660 of the Metropolitan Code to amend the limitations of rebuilding a nonconforming structure. BL 2021-983 by Councilmember Toombs. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing from R10 to SP zoning. Properties located at Lincoln Avenue unnumbered and Curtis Street unnumbered at the northwest terminus of Curtis Street, 31.58 acres. Permit 300 multifamily residential units. BL 2021-984 by Toombs. Ordinance to authorize building material restriction requirements for BL 2021-983. Proposed specific plan zoning district located at Lincoln Avenue and Curtis Street at the northwest terminus of Curtis Street. Proposed ordinance requires certain materials to be restricted in the construction of buildings. BL 2021-985 by Councilmember Van Rees. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing from SP to SP zoning for property located at Skyline Ridge Drive, unnumbered approximately 415 feet east of Dickerson Pike, 24.97 acres. Permit 240 multi-family residential units. BL 2021-986. This is the companion bill. Ordinance to authorize building material restriction requirements for 985. Proposed specific plan zoning district located at Skyline Ridge Drive, approximately 415 feet east of Dickerson Pike. Proposed ordinance requires certain materials to be restricted in the construction of buildings. Bill 2021-987 by Councilmember Sledge. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by amending the Southgate Station specific plan for various properties located north of Southgate Avenue and on either side of Marshall Hollow Drive, 1.97 acres. Prohibit non-owner occupied short-term rental and owner occupied short-term rental uses. BL 2020-988 by Councilmember Sledge. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by change from the 522 to 526 Southgate Avenue specific plan for various properties located north of Southgate Avenue and approximately 120 feet west of Marshall Hollow Drive, 0.97 acres. Prohibit non-owner occupied short-term rental and owner occupied short-term rental uses. BL 2021-989 by Councilmember Toombs. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing from R10 to SP zoning for properties located at 2304 A through F Lloyd Avenue, approximately 360 feet north of Curtis Street, 1.02 acres. Permitted 5 multifamily residential units. BL 2021-990, that's the companion bill for 989. Proposed specific plan zoning district located at 2304 A through F Lloyd Avenue, approximately 360 feet north of Curtis Street, 1.02 acres. Proposed ordinance requires certain materials to be restricted in the construction of buildings. BL 2021-991 by Councilmember Van Rees. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing from R10 to SP zoning for properties located at 401 A through E Williams Avenue, approximately 870 feet east of Walker Terrace, 2.46 acres. Permit 32 multifamily residential units. BL 2021-992, companion bill to 991. Proposed specific plan zoning district located at 401 A through E Williams Avenue, approximately 870 feet east of Walker Terrace. Proposed ordinance requires certain materials to be restricted in the construction of buildings. Bill 2021-994 by Councilmember Syracuse. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by change from OL to IWD zoning for property located at 2975 Elm Hill Pike, approximately 365 feet east of Macquarie Creek Road. It's 1.13 acres. BL 2021-996 is item number 73 by Councilmember Van Rees. It's an ordinance to amend Title 17 by change from RS10 SP zoning for property located at 121 Hart Lane, approximately 200 feet east of Hart Court, 4.33 acres. Permit 26 multifamily residential units. And 997 is the companion bill to 996. Proposed specific plan zoning district located at 121 Hart Lane, 200 feet west of Hart Court. Proposed ordinance requires certain materials to be restricted in the construction of buildings. BL 2021-998 by Councilmember O'Connell. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing from IWD to MUNA zoning. Property located at 177 Little Green Street, approximately 140 feet west of Edgar Street. It's 0.14 acres. Next item is BL 2021-1003 by Councilmember Gamble. Ordinance to amend Title 17. Change from R20 to SP zoning for property located at 1300 Hunters Lane, approximately 600 feet north of Delmere Drive, 7.65 acres to permit a 69-unit multifamily residential development. And the companion bill is 1004. Ordinance to authorize building material restrictions requirements for BL 2021-1003. Proposed specific plan zoning district located at 1300 Hunters Lane, approximately 600 feet north of Delmere Drive, 7.65 acres. Proposed ordinance requires certain materials to be restricted in the construction of buildings. BL 2021-1005 by Councilmember Parker. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing from IR to MULA-NS zoning for properties located at 905 and 907 East Trinity Lane, 3013, 3015 Ambrose Avenue, the northeast corner of East Trinity Lane and Ellington Parkway, 3.19 acres. BL 2021-1006 by Councilmember Welsh. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by change from RS 7.5 and R8 to RM9 NS zoning for properties located at 3134, 3138, 3140, 3142, 3142B, 3144, and 3146 Glencliff Road, approximately 170 feet north of Twin Oaks Drive, 10.9 acres. BL 2021-1008 by Councilmember O'Connell. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by change from IWD to MUNA zoning. Property located at 199 Little Green Street, approximately 110 feet southwest of Hermitage Avenue, 0.15 acres. Item number 82, BL 2021-1009 by Councilmember Syracuse. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by change from SP to IWD zoning for property located at 921 Perimeter Court. Current terminus of Perimeter Court, 3.42 acres. BL 2021-1012 by Councilmember Hancock. Ordinance to amend Title 16 of the Metropolitan Code pertaining to the examination and approval of permit applications and drawings. BL 2021-1017 by Evans and Allen. This is item number 86, an ordinance approving an agreement between Trevecca Nazarene University and the Metropolitan Government through the Police Department to partner with the Criminal Justice Studies Department of Trevecca Nazarene University to provide career opportunities to qualified students. BL 2021-1018, Allen, Evans, Gamble, and others. An ordinance approving an agreement between Lights On and the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County through the Police Department for the participation in the Lights On program that provides bulb repair vouchers that officers may distribute to a target area in lieu of traffic tickets. BL 2021-1019, Toombs, Wither, and Young. Ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government to abandon existing sanitary sewer manholes and accept new sanitary sewer manholes for two properties located at 2982 and 3010 Brick Church Pike. Toombs, Wither, and Young are the sponsors. And then the final bill is BL 2021-1020 by Councilmember Sledge, Withers, and Young. Ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government to abandon existing sanitary sewer and water mains, sanitary sewer manholes, fire hydrant assembly, and easements, and to accept new sanitary sewer and water mains, sanitary sewer manholes, fire hydrant assemblies, and easements. Property located at 1201 Hillside Avenue, also known as the Reservoir Zone 4A. Those are the bills on third reading consent. Anything, Councilmember Van Rees, anything on here that needs to be bumped? Or is that from before?
Yeah, we already bumped.
Okay. All right. Okay. Anything else? Anything else that needs to be bumped? All right. I've got committee reports. The first one is Councilmember Hancock, Government Operations. You've got one bill, 974.
So government operations voted 7 in favor, 0 against on 974. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then Councilmember Rutherford, you've got the list.
Thank you, Mr. President. Bear with me. Planning and zoning considered 887, 929, 930, 946, 974, 975, 983, 984, 985, 986, 987, 988, 989, 990, 991, 992, 994, 996, 997, 998, 1003, 1004, 1005, 1006, 1008, and 1009, voting 9 in favor, 0 against on all.
Okay. And then I had two more. Wait a minute. Oh, but they've already been done. They're listed on here, but you didn't have to read them. That brings back memories of one John Cooper. Very good, Councilmember Rutherford. Okay. Councilmember Rutherford, just because you did such a great job, could you have a motion to pass everything on third reading consent?
Motion to pass the consent on third reading.
All right. So I got a motion to approve everything on third reading consent, properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of passage of third reading consent agenda, say aye. Opposed, no. Third reading consent agenda passes. All right, now we're going to go back and take up all the bills that were not on third reading consent. The first one is Bill 2021-621 by Councilmember Murphy, Allen, O'Connell, and Bradford. It's an ordinance amending Section 17.40.720, 17.40.730 of the Metropolitan Code, require additional public notice regarding applications for permit from the Historic Zoning Commission. Councilmember Murphy, you're recognized.
Thank you. Committee reports, please.
Planning and Zoning, Councilmember Rutherford.
Planning and Zoning voted 9 in favor, 0 against of the substitute, and then voted 9 in favor and 0 against for a deferral to the first meeting in January.
Okay, Councilmember Murphy, back to you.
Thank you. I'd like to move the substitute with a brief explanation.
Okay, so Councilmember Murphy moves it's the second substitute, correct?
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy moves the second substitute, properly seconded. Back to you.
Thank you. What this substitute does is it seeks to clarify a little bit more about what projects go before the council and go before the Historic Zoning Commission and need notification or not. It also cleans up, in this substitute that we had previously on the bill, it cleans up where that had delegated signage to be determined by the Planning Commission staff, and it needs to be historic staff. And then I've also reached out and did hear back from from Metro Legal, that there are some discrepancies in the code. I have asked Historic if they would like us to address that as we're pursuing this bill. So what I'd like to do tonight is to get the amendment, the second substitute on, so we can have it out there for public consumption and continue to work through if they want to clean up their discrepancies. Otherwise, we'll look at the Metro legal opinion and see if we need further clarification. And so what I'll be doing tonight is I ask for your support on the second substitute, and then I'll be deferring this to the first meeting in January, which hopefully means we can put this through.
Okay. So Councilmember Murphy has moved the second substitute, properly seconded. We have people in the queue. Councilmember Weathers, you're recognized.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vice Mayor, and I appreciate the sponsor bringing this because I know the Historic Zoning Commission has worked through we've worked through updates to design guidelines and a number of things. And I know neighborhoods definitely are very concerned about what goes on around them and trying to strike that balance between neighborhood concerns, but also wanting to property owners, most of whom, at least in District 6, are homeowners, to be able to get their permits in a timely manner, especially for things that are ordinarily would be administratively approved. I appreciate the sponsor working on this. And I apologize that I wasn't able to be in committee yesterday. My sense is that actually the intent of clarification is good, but for me reading it, it seems that it's actually a little bit more confusing. And so that's why I'm just wondering if we could just maybe have a committee meeting about it, just to talk through all the things that the sponsors raised and kind of go from there rather than put on a substitute that it sounds like may be amended at least once, if not a couple more times. So I'm just have a little bit of, I understand the desire to get this in front of the public, but I just worry that despite a lot of work that's gone into it already, that maybe it's just not quite there yet. And if we could get a little bit more of a kind of a round table, that we might get better clarification. Thank you.
Councilmember Murphy.
So we started this conversation, originally it was scheduled for a year ago last week. And if you recall, I bumped that meeting to January because my hip surgery had been moved up. And so I've literally been working on this since then. I've asked Historic several times for different pieces of information, and I'm hoping to give them some more time to give feedback because unfortunately most of the questions are met with somewhat different information. I think at this time it's important to move forward. The definition that we have in this substitute that I'm asking y'all to support tonight is out of Richmond, Virginia, and I'm happy to share and forward to the committee the guidebook that I found it from there. I think that Metro Legal and their opinion that they sent up this week has some more guidance that will help with that. But I think it's important to get the substitute on so we are all working from the same draft and from the same page of direction that we are going in. My co-sponsors have been aware of this and have shared with I've asked the council staff to share with them the Metro legal opinion as well. And I think at this time we need to put the substitute on so we can continue to move forward and have a constructive conversation rather than it being confusing as to what we are discussing. So with that, I would again request your support for the second substitute because, again, it is being deferred. It's a Title 17. It can be deferred longer than one meeting, but we've had this come up in committee, and it has been discussed in committee on more than one occasion, and we have had a special held meeting as well.
All right. Councilmember Cash, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I also appreciate Councilmember Murphy's great work on this bill. I think it's really important that we help neighborhoods and property owners in conservation and historic overlays know when, and I think the intent of this bill all along has been to let them know when major renovations are taking place. Historic sends out the agenda every month, and anybody can sign up to get that, but not everybody does that. And so I think it's important that we help property owners close to these renovations, these especially major renovations, know what's going on ahead of time. So I appreciate all this great work. I will remind council members that these aren't zoning changes. They're reviews of plans and making sure that they follow design guidelines, historic and conservation overlay design guidelines. I share Councilman Withers' concern about how in the substitute, some of the, with this bill, we've been trying to find that line and define it well. When do we let when do we let neighbors and which neighbors, how far out from the property, know when a hearing is going to be before the Historic Zoning Commission? And I kind of feel like this I feel like goes a little far or a little farther than I'm comfortable with in terms of I think one of the first parts of the substitute makes what Historic has been doing, administrative permits, kind of pulls that into the notification process, and I am not convinced that doesn't go too far. So I think we're getting close on this bill. There's aspects of this substitute that do make me nervous, but I appreciate all the good work on it, and think ultimately we'll come up with something that hits the right spot in terms of which properties we do notify neighbors about. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I share the same concern, and I've spoken with the sponsor about this a little bit. As we've said, this was born out of many neighbors asking just for a more obvious way to know when a historic property near them may be being considered for a major change. And I appreciate the fact that we have now required a sign in a fashion that is important. The one part of this that concerns me is the need for clarification. I totally agree with. What we've done is taken out language that says notification is required for any change which proposes demolition of a historic building, new construction of a primary building, an addition or outbuilding for a corner lot, or any other preservation permit that requires setback determination. And we're replacing that with a much more specific, the language that comes from Richmond, but it essentially says anything except routine maintenance. And so what we're now saying is to the people that we have worked with to take on a historic overlay as something that would protect them, I have concerns that any time anyone is doing anything in their backyard that no one else can see, they're now going to be required to advertise to the neighborhood, I'm putting on a deck or a porch or whatever. And in other parts of town, that's not necessarily required. So that may be what we need to do, and if that's how they do it in Richmond, maybe that's great. But I'm a little concerned about go ahead and adding this language before we've had time to digest if that's the right language for Nashville. So I appreciate the intent to acknowledge that we may not be done yet, that we may need to add some specificity to when it can be administratively approved. and when this is going to go before the Planning Commission, the Historic Commission, and that we need to notify the neighbors. And so I appreciate the deferral, and I like many parts of this substitute, but that particular piece right there is a big change, and I'm just a little nervous about putting it in and then maybe taking it back out again, and it may be more productive to wait on that piece of it. So I am not comfortable with the substitute, and I appreciate the offer for the deferral. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Murphy, you're recognized.
So last meeting and last committee meeting for planning, I had this amendment filed, and I brought it up and referenced it, and referenced that I was trying to get an opinion from Metro Legal. The reason I did that was to get the information out there. I did not get feedback from simply having the amendment filed. I did not get feedback from the committee or from other members, but it has been discussed in the Planning Committee twice. And my concern is that if we simply just keep deferring the bill without putting the substitute on there for discussion to continue to work on, I'm not going to continue to get the feedback because we haven't gotten it yet. So this amendment has been filed for 2 council meetings now. It's been in the committee twice now. I'm keeping the bill in committee so I can hopefully get some feedback, since that is the proper place to have it, since we can't have meetings outside unless we have a special called meeting. So what I would appreciate is that we can get this substitute on. So hopefully I will get some feedback from committee members, from other council members who have overlays in their district, because my concern is I've had it out there for a month, and without putting it on, I'm not getting feedback. So I think at this juncture, I would appreciate getting the substitute on. I'd appreciate if you have a historic overlay in your district, please review it. If you have not, this is going to be deferred. If we still are uncomfortable with it, I have no problem continuing to defer this until we get it right. I've been very clear about that for an entire year. So hopefully we will get some feedback on this to make it work for us, but without some sort of specific definition to work off of, I'm concerned that I'm not going to be given constructive feedback to move forward, and we've at that point wasted a year, and I'm not sure how much time we want to continue to put into something if we're not getting collaborative feedback across the council. So I would appreciate a positive vote to put the second substitute on so we can hopefully get this bill moving and out the door.
Right, Councilmember Rosenberg, you're next.
Previous question.
All right, so the call has been made for the previous question. Let me make sure everybody knows where we are. Councilmember Murphy has moved her second substitute for passage tonight. That's what we're considering right now. We're not voting on the bill or the second substitute on this. We're just voting on whether you're ready to vote. Just on the previous question, all those in favor of the previous question say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Pretty clear the previous question prevails. All right, so what we're voting on is Councilmember Murphy's motion to approve the second substitute. We'll try it by voice vote, and then we'll see. All those in favor of Councilmember Murphy's motion to approve her second substitute say aye. Aye. Opposed, no.
No.
So I believe the ayes have it. Ayes have it. Okay. So the second substitute goes on. Am I asking you? I'm just saying it out loud in case anybody wanted to do something. So the second substitute prevails. It's on the bill. Councilmember Murphy, you're recognized on Bill 2021-621 with the second substitute on it.
Renew my motion to defer.
Okay, the motion is to defer one meeting, right, to the first meeting in January. Seconded. Discussion on the deferral motion. I got a bunch of people in the queue, but I think that was from before. Anybody on the deferral motion? Councilmember Parker, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So I actually haven't reviewed the second substitute, and I would certainly like an opportunity. I have two neighborhoods with historic overlays, conservation overlays in my district, and I would like the opportunity to be able to take this to those neighborhood association meetings to discuss the second substitute. So I do wonder if the sponsor would entertain a longer deferral, if they would find that to be appropriate.
Councilor Murphy?
I am happy to, trying to think what the right word is, take back my motion. I'm blanking on my parliamentary procedure. Rescind, thank you. Thank you, it's been a long day. I will rescind my motion and happy to renew it to the first meeting in February. Will that give you enough time? I mean, again, my concern here is that it has been out there for a year. This amendment's been out there for over a month. And so I want to get it moving because right now applicants are kind of in a limbo since we've passed second reading. But if you think first meeting in February gives you enough time, Councilman? Do your communities meet in January?
Parker?
That would be better. I believe both Maxwell and Greenwood will have met by then, so I'll be able to discuss it with them. Thank you.
Okay, great.
All right, so Councilmember Murphy has moved to
renew my
defer to
motion
the
for
first meeting in February.
Yes.
Again, properly seconded. Any questions on the deferral motion? All those in favor of the deferral motion say aye. Opposed, no. Deferral motion passes. Councilmember Young, what I was doing was you give people time on something just to make sure everybody was okay with the vote. That was what I was doing. I was asking you personally whether you thought I'd passed it. Okay. So BL 2021-621 has the second substitute on it, but it's deferred into the first meeting in February. Okay. Next item is item number 54. It's BL 2021-853 by Councilmember Van Rees. Ordinance to amend Title 17 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws by applying a historic landmark overlay district to property located at 435 Old Hickory Boulevard, southeast corner of Donna Drive, and Old Hickory Boulevard, Zone RS20, 1.44 acres. That can be taken with item number 56, Councilmember Van Rees. That's the companion bill. The proposed historic landmark overlay district to include properties located at 435 Old Hickory Boulevard, southeast corner of Donna Drive and Old Hickory Boulevard, 1.44 acres. Proposed ordinance requires certain materials to be restricted in the construction of buildings. Councilmember Van Rees, you are recognized.
Yes, Mr. Vice Mayor, I need to make a motion to rescind on second reading with a brief explanation.
All right. So, Councilmember, so y'all need to pay attention to this. Councilmember Van Rees has moved to rescind her actions that were taken on second reading on BL 2021-853 and BL 2021-889. That's her motion, properly seconded. Ms. Eitlin is here, ready to explain if you need her help.
I'll see if I can do it. You can tell me if I got it right.
You're recognized.
Colleagues, I actually made this application myself as a council member, and so the notices that needed to be happening, including the signage in front of the buildings, was not executed by the planning staff. It was just a mistake on their part, but because of that, it was not properly notified for the public hearing that we had, and so I'm going to have to do that again. So I'd like to, again, renew my motion to rescind on second reading and move the public hearing to February 1st. Did I do that right?
Let's do them one at a time.
All right.
Okay, so the motion is to rescind this council's action on second reading on BL 2021-853 and 889. It's been properly seconded. Ms. Eitlin, any additional comments?
No, this is just a notice issue, so it's going to be, need to have another public hearing after a proper notice period.
Okay.
It has full community support. I appreciate my colleagues just understanding the pressures that the planning staff had, and they just simply forgot to put the sign out. So I appreciate your assistance in getting this to move forward.
So a motion to rescind is actually in our rules, requires, it's Rule 37. Any affirmative action of the council may be rescinded by 2/3 vote of the full membership of the council. It takes 27 votes. And I think we got way more than 27 people in here. We're going to try this by voice vote. Again, it's a motion to rescind. It's been properly seconded. All those in favor of the motion to rescind, say aye. Opposed, no. We have rescinded our actions on BL 2021-853 and 889. Those rescinded. The motion to rescind passes on those two. Councilmember Van Rees, you're recognized for a motion on both those bills.
I would now like to move that we reconsider this on February 1st public hearing.
All right, so the motion is to reconsider.
Defer second reading and public hearing to the February first meeting.
Defer second reading
Okay, so Councilmember Van Rees, we're going to give you the right language to do it. Okay.
So it should be a motion to defer second reading to the February public hearing.
Yeah, that's what I said. Motion to rescind on second reading and defer the public hearing on
So
February
you've already rescinded. So this is just to set these two bills.
What she said. Yeah, I'd like to do that.
Yeah.
This is just a motion to move this to the
I'm just trying to
first
protect the
meeting in
house, man.
February for second reading. Okay, that's the motion, properly seconded. Any discussion on the motion? We're just trying to get this back for public hearing in February. Any discussion on this one? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, no. Motion is adopted. Thank you, Councilor Van Rees.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, next item. Make sure I don't miss anything.
Number 85.
That's the next one. Next one is actually item number 76. It's BL 2021-999 by Councilmember Toombs. Ordinance to amend Title 17 of the Metropolitan Code by changing from CS to OR 20 zoning. Property located 2106A through M 24th Avenue North, approximately 75 feet north of Clarksville Pike. It's 0.75 acres. Councilmember Toombs, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Committee report.
Councilmember Rutherford, Planning and Zoning.
Planning and Zoning voted 9 in favor, 0 against on the substitute, and then 9 in favor, 0 against on the bill as substituted.
All right, Councilmember Toombs, you're recognized.
Thank you. I'd like to move the substitute.
All right, so Councilmember Toombs has moved a substitute ordinance on BL 2021-999. Properly seconded. Back to you for an explanation of the substitute.
The substitute adds the NS designation to prohibit short-term rentals.
Okay. You've heard the explanation of the substitute. Again, it was properly seconded. Any discussion on the substitute? All those in favor of the substitute say aye. Opposed, no. Substitute's adopted. Councilmember Toombs, you're on BL 2021-999 as substituted.
Move for approval as substituted.
All right, so Councilmember Toombs has moved for approval, properly seconded. Any discussion on the bill on third reading? Seeing none, we're ready to vote. We're voting on BL 2021-999 as substituted on third reading. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The motion passes. That bill is adopted as substituted on third reading. Next item is item number 83, BL 2021-1011 by Councilmember O'Connell. It's an ordinance to amend Chapter 7.08 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws pertaining to the sale of beer and beer permits, and Chapter 7.24 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws pertaining to alcoholic beverage use restrictions. Councilmember O'Connell, you're recognized on your bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've got a second substitute that I would like to try to get on there, but I will need to suspend the rules. I'd like to request a suspension of the rules, please.
All right, so Councilmember O'Connell has a second substitute, has to move for suspension of the rules. Councilmember Vercher, Rules Committee, take this one up.
They didn't need to, it was timely filed.
It was timely filed. All right, so I'm being told it was timely filed?
It was timely filed, Vice Mayor.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Vercher. So Councilmember O'Connell is moving to suspend the rules to get the second substitute before this body tonight. Is there any objection to suspension of the rules? Seeing no objection, rules are suspended. Councilmember O'Connell, you're recognized on your second substitute.
Thank you. I'd like to move the second substitute with a brief comment.
Okay. So Councilmember O'Connell has moved the second substitute, properly seconded. Back to you.
Thank you. I want to commend the beer board members and staff for working with me diligently here. When we passed BL 2021-911 a few months ago, we knew we were pretty significantly altering the market for entertainment transportation vehicles. And that kind of swept up in that mix were pedal carriages who are already regulated by the Transportation Licensing Commission. I've committed at that point to work pretty quickly to take the next step in the regulatory scheme, which, you know, we've got a multi-step process we're pursuing. This one establishes a new process whereby these types of vehicles can access new permits that are revocable. So they basically will now have to pay a visit to the beer board, whereas before they didn't have to do anything. This second substitute specifically is the beer board working with both MNPD and the Transportation Licensing Commission and working very quickly as they've continued to get some feedback to make just a few more technical updates here before we apply this and create this new beer permit. So this includes a few definition changes and some cleanup. There was one section that could potentially have been interpreted to allow brick and mortar people, establishments to have the opportunity to get a single permit covering both the fixed establishment as well as the mobile establishment. So I encourage colleagues to support this. This is technical changes recommended specifically by the beer board.
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember O'Connell. You've heard the motion. It was properly seconded. On the second substitute, questions or discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote. We're voting on the second substitute. All those in favor of the second substitute say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Second substitute's adopted. Councilmember O'Connell, you're on your bill as substituted.
Thank you. And just for the sake of clarification, I believe now, Ms. Zeitlin, this contains all of the, like we had previously, I think it was substitute amended, and now this incorporates with the second substitute all of the changes we have wanted to adopt all along the way. Is that correct?
Correct. This combines those substitute changes, the amendment that was adopted to the substitute, and then adds new changes with that second substitute.
Great. Thank you. Mr. President, I'd like to move the bill as substituted.
All right, so Councilmember O'Connell moves the bill for passage as substituted on third reading. Properly seconded. Discussion on the bill. Seeing none, ready to vote. We're voting on Bill 2021-1011 as substitute for passage on third and final reading. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Bill is adopted. All right. That takes us to the final bill, I believe, on the calendar tonight. It's Bill 2021-1016 by Councilmember Van Rees, Hurt, Mendes, Porterfield, and others. Ordinance naming the landing and steps in front of the historic Metropolitan Courthouse in honor of Diane Nash. Councilmember Van Rees, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. This is one of those moments that, I tell you, as a little kid, Diane Nash was a hero of mine. It's important to give flowers when you can. I want to acknowledge Councilmember Hurt for her work with me with Metro Parks early on, the months of advocacy in that regard, and to Mr. Mendez for finding always a way. Thank you so much. As what happens a lot of the times, we get good ideas and we try to execute them. But sometimes it's important for us to put the mic down and have the people that it mainly affected have a few words. And our Minority Caucus Chair, Delisha Porterfield, is unable to be here tonight, so she asked me to allow Councilmember Suara to say a few words on behalf of the Minority Caucus and to please move this. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Suara.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Yes, I first want to acknowledge that Councilmember Porterfield is not able to be here. I want to thank Councilmember Van Rees, Councilmember Hernandez for pushing this through, as well as the Minority Caucus members and other council members that are sponsors and all those that are voting in favor. Like Councilmember Van Rees said, Diane Nash is not just an hero as an African American, but she's also a woman. And when you look at the pictures of the civil rights movement, she's always there. And you see this feisty, intelligent, brilliant, beautiful woman right there with the guys and pushing through. I will not tell you her history. You need to read the ordinance and to also look at her history and to see all that she's done. Diane Nash was responsible. She was co-founder of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And this incredible woman was also instrumental in initiating the Alabama Voting Rights Project. A lot of things that made history, not just in Nashville, but across the United States. When you look at what we're talking about, the plaza that we're renaming, it's very, very appropriate, because this is where she actually confronted the mayor of Nashville. And so part of it wanted me to speak because it's following the trend of how Nashville is finally recognizing all these trailblazers. We started with a bunch of street namings, City Vivian, Reverend Smith, we did John Lewis Way, which led to somebody telling me that we also have an high school named after Lawson that was thought of after the John Lewis Way events where Lawson attended. And so it's so great that now we're actually recognizing Diane Nash, who is the female of the pack. Many will tell you that naming streets, naming school, doing ordinances does not solve all the problem that we have with inequity. It does not. But what it does is that we are saying thank you. We're finally recognizing them. But more than anything, I'm hoping that these street names, this name on buildings, this name on the plaza, will serve as a motivation for generations to come. That there was a time in Nashville where young students, individuals have the courage to stand up for what they believe in. I'm going to close before I move with a saying from Diane Nash that says, there is a source of power in each of us that we don't realize until we take responsibilities. I hope we all continue to remember this. I hope we all continue to take responsibility and continue to create a better space for all the people that are coming after us. With that, I'd like to move for approval.
Yes, if we could have all those present voting in favor to be added to the bill, that'd be great.
All right, Councilmember Hurt, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President, for giving me this opportunity. I personally want to thank Councilmember Van Rees for introducing this resolution, and I thank the Minority Caucus who approved for us to move forward when it was first approved. And actually, I want to thank the Parks Board for listening, and although we did not get what we wanted, they were still there for us, and our Councilmember Mendez, who also came up with the solution. I strongly believe that Diane Nash is woefully the most uncelebrated of all the freedom riders. Undoubtedly, she was the most courageous, articulate, and determined. She was not the most popular, nor did she seek to be, but she was convicted with her eyes on the prize. She understood her role and she executed it flawlessly. She changed the city of Nashville forever, and the impact she had is still strong as ever. Thus, our 50% women on this council, our woman director of Metro Parks, 57% of the Parks Board. Diane Nash, like most women, and especially those of color, never get the recognition they deserve. In spite of the sacrifices that they make in paving the road of leadership like Diane Nash did 60 years ago, and just think, she was a year or two from being a teenager. Hail to the Queen.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Hurt. I believe that's it. Somewhere in the middle of all that discussion was a motion to approve this bill. I'm going to give credit to Councilmember Van Rees, a second to Councilmember Suara, and a third to Councilmember Hurt, even though we don't have thirds on this. The motion is to approve Bill 2021-1016 on third and final reading. Anybody else in the queue? Seeing none, we're ready to vote. All those, and without objection, everybody who votes in the affirmative will be listed as a sponsor. All those in favor of Bill 2021-1016 for passage on third and final reading, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The bill passes. That's it for the calendar. Before I do anything, I'm going to turn to Councilmember Murphy. Do we have a winner in the ugly sweater contest? Councilmember Murphy.
I would like to proudly announce that Council Lady Allen is our winner tonight. And that was totally rigged. A second place goes to honorable mention, would be another councilwoman, just kidding, Councilman Zach Young.
So I think we have results. If there's anybody who wants to appeal those decisions, if you will see Ms. Zeitland, she'll handle the appeals.
Motion to reconsider.
A motion to reconsider already. I believe that's it. Everybody have a very, very safe and happy holiday. I need a motion to adjourn. Motion properly second. All in favor say aye. Opposed no. We stand adjourned.
You know, I guess so.
Wow. Wow, that was
thing they did tonight, which was to name the courthouse steps and the plaza in front of this courthouse for Nashville civil rights icon Diane Nash. Supporters had wanted to name the entire park in front of the courthouse for Nash, but the Parks Board did not allow that to happen because they have a long-standing policy not to name parks against living persons. Council members feel it's important to honor Nash while she is still living. They believe the courthouse steps and plaza were appropriate to do this for Miss Nash. In the early 60s, she got then Mayor Ben West to admit it was wrong to segregate downtown lunch counters. Shortly after that, those lunch counters began to serve people of all colors, and in several months of what turned out to be successful student sit-ins downtown had many lunch counters. Also, the council began tonight with the invocation sung by the Fairfield Four. That's an African-American group that's now 100 years old in Nashville and now known across and around the world. They were here tonight, numbers of members, and they sang for the group. It was a very touching moment. The council had already passed a memorializing resolution honoring the Fairfield Four for their 100 years of singing. They were presented with that resolution tonight. They sang in committee, and they sang on the floor tonight to begin the meeting. When the council got into its actual agenda, they had a couple of bills, large bills on to appropriate American Rescue funds. One was RS 2021-1260. It would allocate originally $20 million for affordable housing, $10 million to go to the city's barn fund, $10 million to establish a catalyst fund for affordable housing, and $200,000 to create a centralized database for affordable housing. But with approval from the mayor and the COVID-19 committee that looks over these requests, that number was now doubled to $40.2 million. The resolution had 25 sponsors. It was passed without one dissenting vote from Councilman Glover and one abstention from Councilman Swope. The extra money will also go to the Barnes Fund to help them to provide more affordable housing opportunities, and they'll be putting those out to nonprofit groups all across Nashville to see what else is coming from that. Council also approved $9 million in rescue funds to expand the vehicle fleet for the Metro Nashville Police Department, the Sheriff's Department and Transportation, and the new Department of Transportation, and the Davidson County Sheriff's Office. There were some questions and concerns about that. There are other ways for cities to buy those funds, use those funds for vehicles, so some didn't think that this was a proper way to use American Rescue funds, but the council voted 25-8 with 3 abstentions to do so. Council also approved another request for $11 million to come from the city's 4% reserve fund. That was approved for equipment purchase for several city departments. Council also deferred requests that the city and the COVID-19 Financial Oversight Committee recommend $70 million be used to help begin economic development areas in disadvantaged communities, with particular emphasis on Bordeaux and North Nashville. That's a large amount of money. The council wanted to defer that, so that will come back in the first meeting in January. Other noteworthy resolutions, they approved a $5 million direct appropriation for the state for non-recurring flooding recovery expenses. This includes some home buyouts. They also accepted a $1 million grant from the state to demolish 7 houses in various floodways and floodplains across the community. 2 other resolutions would accepted grants on serious health issues, $737,000 to improve local capacity to improve public health response to substance abuse epidemic, another $6 million to promote the proper use of all recommended vaccines and respond to vaccines, preventable diseases in collaboration with the CDC and other partners. On first reading, the council tonight did approve the new rezoning bill that for all 35 council districts and 9 school board positions. This is done in light of the changes in our population where people live under the 2020 census. The council can only accept or reject what the planning commission has sent them. They cannot amend it. The planning commission has gone through 3 versions of this before they put in the bill, so they feel like at this point they may be in pretty good shape to get it passed. If for some reason the council does not approve it, then that proposal from the planning commission goes on the ballot for the public to consider. The council could also add its own rezoning plan if it prefers to do that. Also, the council was supposed to take up tonight on second reading again the use of license plate readers and scanners by Metro Police. This has been up a number of times. The council cannot come to a consensus about it. They deferred the bill now into the second meeting in January. There were a number of amendments about this bill tonight that were not considered because of the deferral. There also has been new opposition to the whole idea of having license plate readers from the Community Oversight Board. They feel perhaps there's a lot of problems with potential racial profiling that might come out of it. Council also deferred a bill on a couple of bills I had tonight before about tourist transportation vehicles downtown. One bill that would have restricted where they could operate in the downtown area and keep them away within a certain several hundred feet from schools downtown. That bill was deferred for meetings going into January. Also, a bill on third reading was finally approved tonight. This is the bill that Councilman Freddie O'Connell wanted to put in that would allow a BYB, bring your own beer, on some of these downtown tourist vehicles. There was the bill that passed earlier to regulate them completely denied their ability to have any liquor on there. That was creating a problem. Councilman said he tried to fix it. He got it. That new bill took effect. That new law took effect on December 1st, so it's been since that time, so they've been able to serve that. That's been a problem for some of the owners of the entertainment vehicles. They say they're losing businesses, which help them moving to go back in the right direction, although that won't take effect until Mayor Cooper signs the bill. And again, we told you again about the naming of the steps on the courthouse for Diane Nash. The council is now in recess. This is the last meeting of 2021. We'll next be in session on January 4th, 2022, the first Tuesday in the month of in the new year of 2022. We'll be here at that time to provide live coverage. I'm Pat Nolan, and good night from the council chambers. Tonight's meeting of the Metropolitan Nashville and Davidson County Council has been coming to you live from the council chambers at the historic Metro Courthouse. It's been a public affairs presentation of the Metro Nashville Network.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.